Hello, this is Angela with Progress Permaculture. I hope that you all are having a good December so far. I know for our family, this has been a really busy week. It has been finals week for my 3 kids that are in college, and they finally submitted all of their papers and taken their final exams, and we're just breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief, saying like, okay, we can sort of begin to unwind and focus on the holiday a bit more. We're starting to decorate the house, starting to undertake some of those Christmas time rituals that are important to our family. Now, if you are new here, welcome. This is a channel where I talk about permaculture design. I've been practicing permaculture for 26 plus years. And on this site where we are now, I have been practicing permaculture in my garden, in my home, in my community for 15 and a half years. Permaculture is a design system with 12 principles and 3 ethics. It was created in the 1970s by 2 men from Australia, but it borrows from a significant amount of indigenous techniques and wisdom. And permaculture uses the 12 principles and 3 ethics to try to create a more harmonious, more resilient, more just, more abundant way of living for people, and a way that cares for the earth, cares for other people, and exercises fair share. Those are the 3 ethics of permaculture. So lately on my Facebook page, I have been getting a number of interactions from folks who seem to not understand that permaculture is a lot more than gardening. And I've talked about this in the past quite a bit. And I thought it would just take a few minutes and kind of expound upon that here, because I think it's really important for us to understand what permaculture is and isn't, and why it is so important for us to see permaculture design principles and permaculture ethics as extending far beyond the garden and far beyond our systems of food production. We cannot create resilient homesteads, even though I shy away from that word, resilient communities, resilient farms and gardens, without understanding that permaculture is much more than growing food. I'm realizing that I forgot to turn off my cuckoo clock or stop the pendulum before I started this video. So I apologize if you can hear it in the background. It's just the way it is. For me, I definitely came into permaculture through the lens of environmental issues and through an interest in wanting to produce my food in a sustainable way, right? So I think that growing food is the entree for most people into permaculture. And I think for a lot of people, they kind of stop there and say, hey, these are useful principles for growing food in a way that is minimally impactful on the planet and produces a maximum yield for me with reduced effort and reduced ecological footprint, right? But when we think about what permaculture actually is, it is a system to create earth care, people care, and fair share. And one of the permaculture principles is design from patterns to details. It is asking us to take a holistic view of things, to step back, look at the bigger picture, and then focus in and see how the bigger picture is actually woven together of all of these small, intricate, interconnected elements. And then to do the reverse, the converse, to look at the tiny details, focus on them, and then start to look adjacent to those tiny details and see what is connected to them until you build the web from the inside out. I think both of those exercises are really useful in permaculture. I can stand in my garden and look at my pear tree and say, okay, I'm taking this one element. Now, what are all of the different elements that interact with that one element? And then I start to see the web of connection, right? And in permaculture, once you start to do that, once you start to delve into looking at the interconnectedness of all things, you see that it logically cannot end with simply food production. It can't end at the borders of your homestead. It can't end with sort of a prepper mentality or a, gardening mentality of it's about me and my household and the food that we produce. Because the reality is that our food chains, our systems of distribution, our infrastructure, our governments, our neighbors are all connected to us. And permaculture cannot end at the border of our property. And I think once we start to take that mindset, we realize that there's no such thing as self-sufficiency, right? That's one of the key messages of my work. And I'm really encouraged to see a lot of other permaculture people taking up that message, switching from this message of self-sufficiency, 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 to understanding that as we delve into permaculture, we delve into the way that we are all connected and dependent on each other and dependent on the planet that we share, that self-sufficiency is a complete myth. So looking at my Facebook page lately, almost exclusively kind of white American and Canadian men like to come into my page and say, your page is too political, please stick to gardening, please stick to agriculture, permaculture is about growing food sustainably. Why are you talking about all of these other things like Indigenous sovereignty and, fair pay for workers and improved working conditions for our laborers in any industry? Why are you talking about things like feminism? And why are you talking about things like treating children with dignity and respect? And I think that is where those folks have kind of limited themselves in permaculture. They're not going to get to a truly abundant and resilient design system because they're limiting their permaculture to the things in their sphere that are really comfortable for them. And I think it can be very challenging for those of us who are raised in a toxic, individualistic society like America to acknowledge that everything is interconnected, to acknowledge that we can't pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and do it all on our own, and that we actually do depend on people around us. We depend on people who have come before us. We depend on governmental structures like the ones that build our roads, like the ones that fund our fire department and our libraries and our parks, and we depend on things outside of our home to keep us going and to enable us to do permaculture on our own properties, right? We don't live in isolation from other people, and we also don't live independent of the impacts that are harming our neighbors and harming the planet. When we look at the permaculture ethics of earth care and people care, and we start to put those forward in our thinking, it's so much more than growing food. What does it really mean to care for the earth? What does it really mean to care for other people? And more controversially, what does it mean to have fair share with respect to these other two, right? What does it mean to say, I am actually going to create a peaceful, abundant life for myself the best I can, but I know that I can't truly have that and deprive other people of their necessities and exploit the planet, right? So when these gentlemen are making comments on my Facebook post about how I am discussing issues that they feel are not permaculture, those issues are not gardening, but they are permaculture. If we want to have a resilient local food economy, if we want to create just and equitable structures where people aren't exploited for their labor, where people have peace and rest and security in their lives, and we want to create community in a way that helps all of us be able to better weather difficult circumstances and events like global pandemics and like climate change and like unstable governmental systems, then we really need permaculture, and we need to not cut ourselves off at the edge before we really dive into what permaculture is. So I encourage you to go follow my page on Facebook. I realize that that forum is one where I have probably a very different demographic of people than here on YouTube. But there are good discussions that are happening there, and I tend to post a lot more short form content and kind of what my daily thoughts are. And I think that it's important when we are talking about permaculture, when we're talking about resilience, when we're talking about developing systems that make our families more secure, that feed us better, that have a positive impact on the planet, that we don't forget that we connect with everybody around us, that every other family deserves those things too, and that we actually get to achieve that goal when we work together with other people. When we seek justice for other people, we are improving our quality of life as well. When we seek equity for our neighbors, we are uplifting our whole community and thus uplifting ourselves as well. If I could encourage folks who say permaculture is just gardening, and I am uncomfortable when you talk about these other things about justice, and you talk about restitution, and you talk about building up other people whose circumstances are different than mine, I would encourage you to focus on the connection. Focus on that, looking at designing from patterns to details, looking at the ways that every small thing interconnects. And if for no other reason than to say, this makes my household more secure, this increases my own personal resilience, begin to think about the ways that building up your community, that seeking to end systems or heal systems that exploit other people, exploit the planet, cause harm for everybody, especially for people that are really different than you politically, maybe their social norms, maybe their race or ethnicity, maybe their political viewpoints are really different than yours. Think about the ways that improving their circumstances benefits you. And then realize that if we are all working toward communal goals, collective goals of improving our society, improving conditions for everybody, that we are actually helping ourselves as well. Again, I know it's really challenging, especially for those of us that are Americans that have been raised with rugged individualism, that have been raised to fiercely believe that it is all up to us and that we have to look out for number one, to understand that it's actually all about our community. And in doing so, we make our individual selves, our individual households, our neighborhoods, our communities, our cities, our whole world better. And we hopefully are doing it in a way that is also being conscientious of our impacts on the planet, right? Our collective impact on the planet can be a force that is positive, and at the very least reduce harm significantly if we all band together. So I hope that's helpful a little bit. I hope that for those folks who feel that my other content is not permaculture, that helped explain for you how it actually is. It actually is all permaculture. And I hope that you'll be encouraged to think of permaculture as something far beyond gardening, as something far beyond sustainable ways to build your home, right? And in doing so, realize that the expansive nature of permaculture and the myriad ways that we can apply permaculture design principles to our lives and our communities are something that can strengthen all of us. I think we live in a season where a lot of us feel pretty bleak about a lot of things, where there's a lot of insecurity and a lot of concern about what the future may hold on so many different levels, right? Ecological and political levels, socioeconomic levels. And understanding that we actually have a pretty comprehensive set of design skills, and we have a pretty comprehensive framework through which we could start to build things better in a way that doesn't harm anybody and actually raises the quality of life for all of us in the long run. It may make some obscenely rich people less rich. It may mean that corporations that are currently exploiting laborers and exploiting the environment are not able to engage in that, but that actually brings healing and abundance for all of us in the long run. So thank you for listening today. If you have not clicked like and subscribe, I would really be grateful if you could do that. I am this close to 40,000 subscribers, and it would be awesome if you could just go ahead and click that subscribe button. Please don't forget to like and share my content. You all doing that enables me to help keep making these videos. Thanks so much, and I'll be back really soon.